The workshop was quiet, except for the soft hum of tools and the occasional spark from a soldering iron. A young girl, no older than 16, wiped the sweat from her forehead as she tightened the last bolt on her latest creation. She had spent months building him, piece by piece, using scraps of metal and wires she had collected from junkyards. He was her masterpiece, a robot unlike anything the world had ever seen. She stepped back, admiring her work. The robot stood tall, his metallic body gleaming under the dim light of the workshop. His eyes, two glowing blue orbs, flickered to life as she pressed the final button on the control panel. For a moment, there was silence. Then, he spoke. "I am not what you think I am." The girl froze. Her heart raced as she stared at him, unsure if she had heard him correctly. The voice was deep, almost human, but there was something else, a strange, otherworldly tone that sent shivers down her spine. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. The robot turned his head slowly, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "I am not a machine," he said. "I am something more. And you are in danger." The girl's mind raced. She had built him from scratch, programmed him herself. How could he be anything other than a robot? But the way he spoke, the way he moved, it was too real, too alive. Before she could respond, the workshop door creaked open. A cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the lights. In the darkness, she heard the robot's voice again, low and urgent. "They're coming." As if they were being watched. As they hurried through the shadows, the robot spoke again, his voice low and steady. "Thank you," he said. "For trusting me." The girl didn't respond. Her mind was too busy trying to process everything that had happened. She had built a robot, only to discover he was an alien mercenary. Now, they were on the run, hunted by forces she couldn't even begin to understand. But one thing was clear, this was only the beginning. The girl and the robot moved quickly through the darkened streets, sticking to the shadows to avoid being seen. The town was eerily quiet, as if holding its breath. The only sound was the soft whir of the robot's joints and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. The girl kept glancing over her shoulder, her heart racing with every step. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. "Where are we going?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The robot paused, his glowing eyes scanning the area. "Somewhere safe," he replied. "A place where they cannot find us." "Who are they?" she asked, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "You keep saying, they, but you haven't told me anything." The robot turned to her, his metallic face expressionless but his voice filled with urgency. "They are my own kind," he said. "Soldiers, like me, but loyal to a cause that would destroy this world. I was sent here to stop them, but something went wrong. Now, they see me as a traitor." The girl stared at him, her mind struggling to process his words. "You're saying, there's an alien invasion coming? And you're here to stop it?" The robot nodded. "Yes. But I cannot do it alone. I need your help." The girl's heart sank. She was just a teenager, a mechanic who built robots for fun. How could she possibly help stop an alien invasion? But before she could respond, a loud noise echoed through the night, a deep, mechanical hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The robot's eyes flickered, and he grabbed her arm, pulling her into a narrow alley. "Stay down," he whispered. The girl crouched beside him, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. She peered around the corner, her eyes widening as she saw a strange, glowing craft hovering in the sky. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, sleek and silent, with lights that pulsed in an eerie rhythm. The craft moved slowly, scanning the ground below. "Is that them?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The robot nodded. "They are searching for me. If they find us, they will not hesitate to destroy us both." The girl's mind raced. She had always dreamed of building something extraordinary, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. Now, she was caught in the middle of a battle she didn't understand, with a robot, no, an alien, who claimed to be her only hope. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The robot turned to her, his glowing eyes steady. "We fight," he said. "But first, we need to find a way to restore my full memory. There is something important I am missing, something that could change everything." The girl nodded, her fear giving way to determination. She didn't know if she could trust him completely, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't just sit back and let her world be destroyed. Whatever was coming, she would face it head-on. "Okay," she said, her voice firm. "Let's do this." The robot gave a small nod, and together, they slipped out of the alley, moving quickly and quietly through the shadows. The glowing craft continued to hover in the distance, its lights casting an ominous glow over the town. The girl's heart pounded with every step, but she forced herself to stay focused. They had a mission now, and failure was not an option. As they made their way to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the robot spoke again, his voice low and steady. "Thank you," he said. "For believing in me." The girl didn't respond. Her mind was too busy trying to figure out how they were going to pull this off. But one thing was clear: this was no longer just about building robots. This was about saving the world. The abandoned warehouse loomed ahead, its broken windows and rusted walls casting long shadows in the moonlight. The girl and the robot approached cautiously, their footsteps silent on the cracked pavement. The air was thick with tension, and the girl couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced at the robot, his glowing eyes scanning their surroundings with a precision that was almost unnerving. "Is this place safe?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "For now," the robot replied. "But we must hurry." They slipped inside through a gap in the rusted door, the interior of the warehouse dark and musty. The girl pulled out her flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness to reveal stacks of old crates and machinery covered in dust. It was the perfect hiding place, isolated, forgotten, and far from prying eyes. The robot moved to the center of the room, his metallic body creaking softly as he knelt down. He placed a hand on the floor, and a faint hum filled the air as a hidden compartment in his chest opened. Inside was a small, glowing device that pulsed with a soft blue light. "What is that?" the girl asked, her curiosity outweighing her fear. "A memory core," the robot explained. "It contains fragments of my past, information that could help us stop the invasion. But it was damaged in the crash. I need your help to repair it." The girl nodded, setting her backpack down and pulling out her tools. She had always been good at fixing things, but this was unlike anything she had ever worked on before. The device was intricate, its surface covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. "How do I even start?" she asked, her hands trembling slightly. "Focus on the connections," the robot said. "The damage is mostly to the external circuits. If you can restore the flow of energy, the core should activate on its own." The girl took a deep breath and got to work, her hands moving with practiced precision. As she worked, the robot stood guard, his glowing eyes fixed on the warehouse entrance. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the occasional sound of the wind outside. Minutes passed, and the girl felt a surge of pride as the device began to hum louder, its glow growing brighter. "I think it's working," she said, a smile tugging at her lips. But before the robot could respond, a loud crash echoed from outside the warehouse. The girl froze, her heart pounding as the sound of heavy footsteps approached. The robot's eyes flickered, and he turned to her, his voice urgent. "They've found us." The girl's stomach dropped. She looked at the device in her hands, its glow now steady and strong. "What do we do?" she whispered. The robot stepped forward, his metallic body shifting as panels slid open to reveal hidden weapons. Stay behind me, he said. No matter what happens, do not let them take the core. Before she could respond, the warehouse doors burst open, and 3 figures stepped inside. They were unlike anything the girl had ever seen, tall and humanoid, but with skin that shimmered like liquid metal and eyes that glowed a menacing red. They moved with a fluid grace, their movements almost too fast to follow. The robot raised his weapons, his voice calm but firm. You will not take her. The lead alien tilted its head, its voice a cold, mechanical hiss. You are outnumbered, traitor. Surrender, and we will make your end quick. The girl clutched the memory core to her chest, her mind racing. She had no weapons, no way to fight. All she could do was trust the robot, her creation, her friend. The robot didn't hesitate. He fired a burst of energy from his weapons, the blast lighting up the warehouse as the aliens scattered. The girl ducked behind a stack of crates, her heart pounding as the battle raged around her. The sound of metal clashing against metal filled the air, and the warehouse shook with the force of their blows. She peeked out from her hiding place, her eyes widening as she saw the robot holding his own against the 3 aliens. His movements were precise, calculated, but she could see the strain in his glowing eyes. He was outnumbered, and it was only a matter of time before they overwhelmed him. The girl looked down at the memory core in her hands, its glow steady and strong. She didn't know what it could do, but she knew one thing: she couldn't just sit back and watch. She had to do something. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out from behind the crates, the memory core held high. Hey, she shouted, her voice echoing through the warehouse. You want this? Come and get it. The aliens turned to her, their glowing eyes narrowing. The robot seized the opportunity, striking one of them with a powerful blow that sent it crashing to the ground. The other 2 hesitated, their attention divided. The girl didn't wait. She turned and ran, the memory core clutched tightly in her hands. The sound of footsteps behind her told her they were following, but she didn't look back. She focused on the door ahead, her heart pounding as she pushed herself to go faster. Just as she reached the door, a hand grabbed her arm, yanking her back. She turned to see one of the aliens looming over her, its red eyes burning with anger. But before it could strike, a blast of energy hit it from behind, sending it sprawling to the ground. The robot stood there, his weapon smoking, his glowing eyes filled with determination. Run, he shouted. The girl didn't need to be told twice. She sprinted out of the warehouse, the robot close behind. The night air was cold against her skin, but she didn't stop. They had the memory core, and they had a chance. But the hunt was far from over. The girl and the robot ran through the empty streets, their footsteps echoing in the silence of the night. The memory core pulsed in the girl's hands, its glow casting a faint blue light on the ground ahead. She could hear the distant hum of the alien craft still searching for them, its eerie lights sweeping across the sky. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to keep moving, her mind focused on one thing: survival. Where are we going? She panted, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Somewhere safe, the robot replied, his voice steady despite the urgency in his tone. We need to activate the memory core. It's our only chance. The girl nodded, clutching the core tightly. She didn't know what it could do, but she trusted the robot. He had saved her life back in the warehouse, and she knew he wouldn't lead her astray. Still, the weight of what they were up against pressed heavily on her shoulders. An alien invasion. A world in danger. And somehow, she was at the center of it all. They reached an old, abandoned subway station on the edge of town. The entrance was boarded up, but the robot easily pried the planks away, revealing a set of stairs leading into the darkness below. The girl hesitated, her fear of the unknown momentarily freezing her in place. It's safe, the robot assured her, his glowing eyes meeting hers. They won't think to look for us here. Taking a deep breath, the girl followed him down the stairs, the memory core's glow lighting their way. The station was eerily quiet, the air thick with dust and the scent of decay. Broken tiles crunched under their feet as they made their way to the platform, where an old train car sat abandoned, its windows shattered and its doors hanging open. The robot led her inside the train car, where he quickly set up a makeshift workstation using tools from the girl's backpack. He placed the memory core on the floor, its glow illuminating the cramped space. "We need to activate it," he said, his voice low and urgent. "But it will take time. You must keep watch while I work." The girl nodded, her eyes scanning the darkness outside the train car. She could still hear the faint hum of the alien craft in the distance, and it sent a shiver down her spine. She clutched a wrench from her backpack, her knuckles white as she gripped it tightly. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was all she had. As the robot worked, his hands moving with precision over the memory core, the girl's mind wandered. She thought about her life before all of this, before the robot, before the aliens, before the world had turned upside down. She had always been a dreamer, someone who believed in the impossible. But this was beyond anything she could have imagined. "Why did you come here?" she asked suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. "To Earth, I mean. What's so special about this place?" The robot paused, his glowing eyes flickering as if lost in thought. "Your world is unique," he said finally. "It has something mine does not, hope. My people have lost that. They seek only power, control. I was sent to stop them, to protect what you have." The girl frowned, her grip on the wrench tightening. "But why you? Why not someone else?" The robot's eyes dimmed slightly, and for a moment, he seemed almost human. "Because I believed in something greater," he said quietly. "But now, they see me as a traitor. And they will stop at nothing to silence me." Before the girl could respond, a loud crash echoed from above, shaking the station and sending dust raining down from the ceiling. The girl's heart leapt into her throat as she peered out the train car's broken window, her eyes scanning the darkness. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling. The robot's hands moved faster, his glowing eyes focused on the memory core. "I need more time," he said, his voice tense. "You must hold them off." The girl's stomach churned with fear, but she nodded. She didn't know if she could do it, but she had no choice. She stepped out of the train car, her wrench held tightly in her hand, and moved to the edge of the platform. The sound of footsteps echoed through the station, growing louder with each passing second. Then, they appeared, 3 alien figures, their liquid metal skin shimmering in the dim light. Their red eyes locked onto her, and they moved with a terrifying speed, closing the distance in seconds. The girl's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "You're not taking him," she said, her voice shaking but defiant. The lead alien tilted its head, its voice a cold, mechanical hiss. "Foolish child. You cannot stop us." Before it could strike, the girl swung the wrench with all her strength, the metal connecting with the alien's arm with a loud clang. It staggered back, its red eyes narrowing in anger. The other 2 aliens moved in, but the girl didn't back down. She swung again and again, her fear giving way to determination. Just as one of the aliens lunged at her, a burst of energy shot past her, hitting the creature square in the chest and sending it crashing to the ground. The girl turned to see the robot standing behind her, his weapons glowing and his eyes blazing with intensity. "I've activated the core," he said, his voice steady. "But we must leave. Now." The girl didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed her backpack and followed the robot as he led her deeper into the subway tunnels, the memory core's glow lighting their way. Behind them, the aliens recovered quickly, their footsteps echoing as they gave chase. The girl's heart raced as they ran, the tunnels twisting and turning like a maze. She didn't know where they were going, but she trusted the robot. He had saved her life again, and she knew he would do whatever it took to protect her. As they rounded a corner, the robot suddenly stopped, his glowing eyes scanning the walls. "Here," he said, pressing a hand against a hidden panel. The wall slid open, revealing a secret passage. The girl stared in disbelief. "How did you know that was there?" The robot's eyes flickered. "The memory core," he said simply. "It's starting to come back to me." They stepped inside, the wall sliding shut behind them just as the aliens reached the corner. The girl let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding, her legs trembling with exhaustion. "What now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The robot turned to her, his glowing eyes steady. "Now, we fight back." The secret passage led to a hidden underground chamber, its walls lined with strange, glowing symbols that pulsed with a soft, otherworldly light. In the center of the room stood a large console, its surface covered in buttons and screens that flickered to life as the robot approached. The girl stared in awe, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "A safe house," the robot replied, his glowing eyes scanning the console. "Built by others like me who saw the truth. It's been dormant for years, but the memory core has activated it." The girl stepped closer, her eyes wide as she took in the advanced technology. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, far beyond anything humans could create. The robot's hands moved swiftly over the console, his metallic fingers pressing buttons and pulling up holographic displays. "What are you doing?" she asked, her curiosity outweighing her fear. "Preparing," the robot said, his voice tense. "The aliens will not stop until they find us. We need to be ready." The girl nodded, her mind racing. She didn't know what "ready" meant, but she trusted the robot. He had saved her life more than once, and she knew he wouldn't lead her into danger without a plan. Suddenly, the console beeped, and a holographic map of the town appeared, glowing in the air above it. The robot studied it for a moment, his eyes flickering as he processed the information. "They're here," he said finally, his voice grim. "And they're not alone." The girl's heart sank as she looked at the map. Dozens of red dots were moving through the town, converging on their location. The aliens had brought reinforcements. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. The robot turned to her, his glowing eyes steady. "We fight," he said. "But we cannot do it alone. We need to rally the town, warn them of what's coming." The girl frowned. "How? No one will believe us. They'll think we're crazy." The robot hesitated, then reached into a compartment in his chest and pulled out a small device. It was a holographic projector, its surface covered in the same strange symbols as the memory core. "This will show them the truth," he said, handing it to her. "But you must be the one to use it. They will listen to you." The girl took the device, her hands trembling slightly. She didn't know if she could do it, but she knew she had to try. The fate of the town, of the world, depended on it. "Okay," she said, her voice firm. "Let's go." The robot nodded, and together, they made their way back to the surface. The town was eerily quiet, the streets empty as the aliens moved in the shadows. The girl's heart pounded as they approached the town square, where a small crowd had gathered, drawn by the strange lights in the sky. The girl stepped onto a makeshift stage, her hands clutching the holographic projector. She took a deep breath, her mind racing as she tried to find the right words. "Everyone, listen," she shouted, her voice echoing through the square. "I know this sounds crazy, but we're in danger. Aliens are here, and they're planning to destroy us." The crowd murmured, their faces filled with disbelief and fear. Before anyone could protest, the girl activated the projector, and a holographic image of the aliens appeared, their liquid metal skin and glowing red eyes sending a wave of panic through the crowd. "This is real," the girl said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. "And we need to fight back." Together. The crowd erupted into chaos, some people screaming, others running for cover. But a few stayed, their faces filled with determination. They were scared, but they were willing to fight. The robot stepped forward, his glowing eyes scanning the crowd. "We do not have much time," he said. "But if we work together, we can stop them." The girl nodded, her heart swelling with hope. They weren't alone anymore. They had a chance. As the first wave of aliens descended on the town, the battle began. The girl and the robot fought side by side, their makeshift army of townspeople joining the fray. The sound of energy blasts and clashing metal filled the air, the town square turning into a battlefield. The girl's hands trembled as she swung her wrench, her fear giving way to determination. She didn't know if they could win, but she knew they had to try. For the town. For the world. For the future. The robot moved with precision, his weapons cutting through the alien forces with ease. But even he was not invincible. As the battle raged on, the girl could see the strain in his glowing eyes, the weariness in his movements. "We can't keep this up forever," she shouted over the noise. The robot nodded, his voice grim. "We don't have to. Just long enough." "For what?" she asked, her heart pounding. The robot's eyes flickered, and for a moment, he seemed almost human. "For hope," he said. The battle raged on, the town square illuminated by the flashes of energy blasts and the glow of the alien forces. The girl fought alongside the robot, her wrench swinging with a determination she didn't know she had. The townspeople, though terrified, stood their ground, using whatever they could find as weapons. But the aliens were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. The robot's movements were growing slower, his metallic body dented and scorched from the fight. The girl could see the strain in his glowing eyes, the way his steps faltered as he pushed himself to keep going. She knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "We need a plan," she shouted, ducking behind a overturned car as an energy blast narrowly missed her. The robot joined her, his voice low and urgent. "There is one way to stop them," he said. "But it will require a sacrifice." The girl's heart sank. What kind of sacrifice? The robot hesitated, his glowing eyes meeting hers. "The memory core," he said. "It contains a virus that can disable their ships and weapons. But to activate it, I must upload it directly into their mainframe. It will destroy me in the process." The girl stared at him, her mind reeling. "No," she said firmly. "There has to be another way." The robot shook his head. "This is the only way. If we do not act now, they will overwhelm us, and the town, the world, will be lost." The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she forced herself to stay strong. She had built him, repaired him, fought beside him. He wasn't just a machine, he was her friend. And now, he was asking her to let him go. "I can't lose you," she whispered, her voice breaking. The robot placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch surprisingly gentle. "You will not lose me," he said. "I will always be with you. In the memories we've made, in the hope we've fought for. That is what matters." The girl swallowed hard, her hands trembling as she clutched the memory core. She knew he was right. They were out of time, and this was their only chance. But it didn't make it any easier. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "Do it." The robot nodded, his glowing eyes filled with determination. He took the memory core from her and inserted it into a slot in his chest. The core's glow intensified, spreading through his body as the virus began to upload. "Go," he said, his voice steady. "Warn the others. Get as far away as you can." The girl hesitated, her heart breaking as she looked at him one last time. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." The robot gave a small nod, his glowing eyes softening. "Thank you," he said. For believing in me." With tears streaming down her face, the girl turned and ran, shouting for the townspeople to retreat. They didn't understand what was happening, but they followed her, their fear driving them to safety. As the girl reached the edge of the square, she turned back, her heart pounding. The robot stood in the center of the chaos, his body glowing brighter and brighter as the virus spread. The aliens seemed to realize what was happening, their red eyes widening in panic as they tried to stop him. But it was too late. With a final burst of light, the robot activated the virus, the energy wave spreading through the town and beyond. The alien ships in the sky flickered and went dark, their weapons falling silent as the virus disabled their systems. The alien forces on the ground collapsed, their liquid metal bodies going still. The girl watched in awe as the light faded, leaving the town square eerily quiet. The robot was gone, his sacrifice saving them all. Tears streamed down her face as she fell to her knees, her heart heavy with grief. But even in her sorrow, she felt a glimmer of hope. The robot had given his life to protect them, to give them a chance at a future. And she knew she couldn't let that sacrifice be in vain. As the townspeople began to emerge from their hiding places, their faces filled with shock and relief, the girl stood up, her resolve hardening. She would honor the robot's memory by rebuilding, by fighting for the hope he had believed in. The battle was over, but the war for their future had just begun. The town was in ruins. Buildings were scorched, streets were littered with debris, and the once bustling square was now eerily silent. The girl stood amidst the wreckage, her heart heavy with grief but her spirit unbroken. The robot's sacrifice had saved them, but the cost had been immense. She could still see his glowing eyes in her mind, hear his steady voice urging her to go on. The townspeople slowly emerged from their hiding places, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. They gathered around the girl, their eyes searching hers for answers. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling but firm as she addressed them. "We're safe," she said. "The aliens are gone. But we can't just sit back and do nothing. We have to rebuild. We have to honor the sacrifice that was made for us." The crowd murmured, their fear slowly giving way to determination. One by one, they stepped forward, ready to help. The girl felt a surge of hope as she saw the strength in their eyes. They had been through hell, but they were still standing. And that was something. Over the next few days, the town came together in a way it never had before. People worked side by side, clearing debris, repairing buildings, and helping those who had been injured. The girl worked tirelessly, her hands calloused and her body aching, but she refused to stop. She knew the robot would have wanted her to keep going. As she worked, she found herself thinking about him more and more. She remembered the way he had spoken about hope, about the importance of fighting for something greater. He had believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. And now, she was determined to carry on his legacy. One evening, as the sun set over the rebuilt town square, the girl sat on a bench, staring at the spot where the robot had made his final stand. She felt a hand on her shoulder and looked up to see an elderly man, his face lined with age but his eyes filled with kindness. "You've done a remarkable thing," he said, his voice soft but filled with admiration. "You've given us all hope." The girl smiled faintly, her eyes glistening with tears. "It wasn't just me," she said. He was the one who saved us. I just did what I could to honor him." The man nodded, his gaze thoughtful. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who don't get to see the future they fought for. But that doesn't mean their sacrifice was in vain. It's up to us to make sure their legacy lives on. The girl's heart swelled with emotion as she looked out over the town. The streets were still scarred, the buildings still bearing the marks of battle, but there was a sense of resilience in the air. The townspeople had come together, united by a common purpose. And she knew that was exactly what the robot would have wanted. As the days turned into weeks, the girl continued to work, her determination unwavering. She started a project to build a memorial in the town square, a tribute to the robot and the sacrifice he had made. The townspeople supported her, donating materials and labor to help bring her vision to life. When the memorial was finally completed, the girl stood before it, her heart filled with pride and sorrow. The statue depicted the robot standing tall, his glowing eyes looking out over the town. At its base was a plaque that read, "In memory of the one who gave everything for our future. May his hope live on in all of us." The girl placed a hand on the statue, her fingers tracing the cold metal. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." As she turned to leave, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. The road ahead would be difficult, but she knew they would face it together. The robot's sacrifice had given them a chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. The town had been through hell, but they had come out stronger. And as long as they held on to hope, they could face whatever the future held. Months had passed since the battle, and the town had transformed. The scars of the alien invasion were still visible, but they were no longer the focus. Instead, the town had become a symbol of resilience and hope. The memorial in the square stood as a reminder of the sacrifice that had saved them, and the people had come together in ways they never had before. The girl stood in her workshop, her hands busy with a new project. She had spent countless hours working on it, pouring her heart and soul into every detail. It wasn't just a machine, it was a tribute, a way to honor the robot who had changed her life. As she tightened the last bolt, she stepped back to admire her work. The new robot stood tall, its design inspired by the one she had built so long ago. But this one was different. It wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol of hope, a reminder of what they had fought for. She activated the robot, its eyes flickering to life with a soft blue glow. It turned to her, its voice calm and steady. "Hello," it said. "How can I assist you?" The girl smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "You already have," she said softly. She led the robot out of the workshop and into the town square, where a crowd had gathered. The townspeople watched in awe as the new robot stood beside the memorial, its presence a testament to the strength and determination of their community. The girl stepped forward, her voice clear and strong as she addressed the crowd. "We've been through so much," she said. "We've faced unimaginable challenges, but we've come out stronger. And it's all because of one simple thing, hope." She looked up at the memorial, her eyes glistening with tears. "He taught me that hope is more than just a feeling. It's a choice. It's something we have to fight for, even when the world feels dark. And it's something we have to share, because hope is what brings us together." The crowd was silent, their faces filled with emotion as they listened. The girl took a deep breath, her voice steady. "We can't change the past, but we can shape the future. And as long as we hold on to hope, we can face anything." As she finished speaking, the crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the square. The girl felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She had honored the robot's memory, and in doing so, she had found her own purpose. The new robot stood beside her, its glowing eyes scanning the crowd. "What is our next mission?" it asked. The girl smiled, her heart filled with determination. "To keep hope alive," she said. "For ourselves, for each other, and for the future." As the sun set over the town, casting a warm golden light over the square, the girl felt a sense of closure. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had taught her something invaluable, that even in the darkest times, hope could light the way. And as long as she held on to that hope, she knew they could face whatever came next.